I've got loads of cameras that I'm going to talk to you about, and I hope I can make lots of videos and share my love of these beautiful gadgets with you. But I had to start somewhere, and I've started for a good reason today with the Fuji X-Pro1, mainly because I think it bridges, or sort of bridges, a gap between film photography and digital. Of course, it is a digital camera, but the beauty of it is that I've been able to use this camera that I got back in 2012 now, with lots of legacy lenses like this Nikon with an adapter. So you have an adapter that you can attach here and use all the old vintage or legacy lenses, as they're called. And of course, before I used the Fuji digital system, I used to shoot almost exclusively with things like this. This is the Leica M6. It's a legend, and have a look out there on YouTube. You'll hear so much about it. But what I can do is, of course, again, use a Leica lens like this one. This is another little beauty that I've got. It's a 90mm Leica lens, and here's the adapter. So this adapter then fits on the Fuji, and I can use a digital camera with old legacy lenses, and I have had some absolutely beautiful results. Now, the whole thing, of course, does slow you down a little bit, but I think that's good in a world where we're moving so fast and everything has become photography on your phone, and I really have not enjoyed that. I mean, I like to use a camera to take shots and street shots when I can't get or I don't have my camera with me. But ordinarily, what I really want to do is to enjoy using a proper camera that makes me want to get out there and take pictures. So for a long time, I used this Fuji camera, and I resisted change. I love the Fuji lenses. I mean, this is the 23mm 1.4, which looks a bit bigger on this camera, but it actually feels lovely to use, and the weight is nice. I think it's quite nicely balanced, and the 1.4 aperture produces beautiful shots with a beautiful bokeh, and I can't really fault any of the Fujifilm lenses that I've used. Perhaps I'll make a video in future about the selection that I have used, and I'll show you some of the results that I've obtained. Now, it was about September 2019 that I started to hear rumours about the Fuji X Pro 3. And I was really fascinated by the way Fujifilm were moving towards producing a camera in a niche area for the photographer. And I really admire Fujifilm for that. Of course, the whole issue polarized a whole bunch of photographers, because the issue with the flip down screen, perhaps how expensive it was, and the fact that it was really an XT3 in the body of an X Pro camera, but without the standard screen. And I resisted, really. I thought, well, do I really need an X Pro 3? I looked at my X Pro 1. It's really solidly built. I always use it with a half leather case, and you won't find a single scratch on this, despite the fact I've taken it everywhere. I use a thumb up support on it here. And if I wanted to use it like the X Pro 3 and have no screen at all, I just switch it off and I rely on the optical viewfinder or the electronic viewfinder. But it wasn't until I started really reading up and exploring the X Pro 3, I think I watched every single video there was out there on YouTube, read every review. And then I went to the Fujifilm House of Photography in London while I was attending a course. I loved the shop there. The people there were so helpful. And I got to use the camera. And having dreamt about it and putting it on my wish list for a long, long time, yesterday the thing arrived. And I have to say, I am in love with it. Now, what I'm not going to do is an unboxing for you. I think there's plenty of videos there on that. There's not much to say about it. It's a box with a camera inside it. There isn't even a charger. There's a battery, and they give you this really big cloth that's probably unnecessary, but there we are, of some use to wrap your camera up and keep it cozy and warm. I have to say that when I bought the X-Pro1, the box was much more extravagant, and it seemed more like a luxury item. And there's nothing wrong at all with the X Pro 1. It's beautifully built and everything. Having now used the X Pro 3, I am very, very much in love with it. It's a superb camera, and I got this one for a bargain, brand new from an internet company. I can let you know which if you want to make any comments below. But I went for the black version because I think it's stealthier. Plus, I got a very good offer on it. And although I do love the Duratec versions, particularly the Duratec Silver, two things put me off that. One was the fact that I'd read about the fingerprints, and I noticed in the Fujifilm shop that it did in fact leave quite a lot of fingerprints up here, although that didn't put me off too much. It gives it a slightly vintage look. I wanted the Duratec Black, but I think that probably shows fingerprints more. But I really do look after my cameras. I mean, if you look at my X Pro 1, I never had a single scratch on it. The only area in which I might have experienced some scratches is here, where I've used, you can just see where I've used the flash, attached a flash there, and there are a few little scratches there, but that's not the end of the world. So I can see probably why Fujifilm wanted to make the X Pro 3 very special and make it a collectible for the future. But I wonder, are digital cameras going to become collectible? They probably will in time, but what you're investing in mainly is the lenses at the moment. They're the things that really don't date. Particularly the Fujifilm lenses are absolutely spectacular. But again, I say, one of the beauties of this system is that you can actually use all the legacy lenses with it. And I can attach this Summicron, for example, on my Leica, to this Fuji X Pro 3 or the X Pro 1 and produce some beautiful, beautiful results. So what do I actually think of the X Pro 3? Was it worth getting? Absolutely 100%. It is solidly built. It's beautiful. This is the flip down screen. You can see here that when you switch it on, you get this. You can't see it in this light, but you get this little window that you probably read about if you're interested in this sort of camera, that tells you which film simulation you're using. In this case, classic negative, which I've been really eager to try. And then you've got the flip down screen, which you can push all the way down 180 degrees. But in actual fact, once you've set your camera and you put all the settings on it, you don't really need to mess much with that screen unless you're doing waist level shots. And I found that I can look through the viewfinder here, which is fantastic, review my shots and carry on, not worry about the screen. I did have an X-T3 which unfortunately was faulty, and I had to send it back, and I'm so glad that I did. It wasn't really the camera for me, although it's a much better all-rounder and you can achieve so much more with it. For me, as a photographer and as a purist, this has been the system that I love, a camera that I enjoy using, that gets me out there makes me want to take pictures, feels solid in my hand. And that's a much greater experience for me than going out with a phone and trying to do all this, trying to take pictures with it. It's not really the thing for me unless I've forgotten to bring my camera. So is there anything that I don't like about this camera? Well, there's only one thing, and I think this has been mentioned in a couple of other videos. The only thing I don't like about it is this new little door here for the HDMI. And I think on the X Pro 2, which I never owned, this was a more solid construction. I don't like the fact that, you know, I think this is a little bit tacky for a camera in this price range. And it lets the camera down, but everything else is really, really lovely. And when you put a lens on this, I mean, I'm using at the moment just this simple 27mm prime, which is equivalent to about 40mm full frame. And it's really great for street photography. When I use it on the X Pro 1, I wasn't that impressed because the autofocus on the X Pro 1 is a bit slow, and I thought it let me down a little bit. But on the X Pro 3, it is phenomenal because the autofocus is so much faster. It makes using this combination a joy for street photography. Got this camera yesterday. I've taken a few shots around the house. The weather hasn't been brilliant, but what I see, particularly with that new film simulation classic negative, is phenomenal. The quality is phenomenal, and it's an absolute joy to hold in your hand and use, and I highly, highly recommend it. I'm going to stop there in this first video, but I hope that in the next few weeks I can show you the results from this camera, and I can begin to make videos on all my other film and digital cameras that I hope you'll really enjoy. So cheerio, bye-bye for now.